This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who this past weekend, on Saturday, December 3rd at the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida, defeated Kevin Holland by TKO via corner stoppage after the fourth round ended. Whew, what a fight this was. People were calling it already a fight of the year candidate pretty much the night that it ended. Fight of the night honors for both of these guys. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What was your reaction of the way the fight ended at the end of the fourth round and of the performances of both these men overall?
I'm going to be the Debbie Downer on this one. As much as it was a great fight and it was a fun fight, and I get why people are talking up and all that, I can't feel any other emotion than how fucking annoyed I am with Kevin Holland that he had the biggest opportunity of his life, and he goes in there and he's like, no, I'm not touching the ground. I'm just going to have a striking contest with, of all people, Stephen Thompson. Like, it's not easy being a fan of Kevin Holland. Like, the first round of the fight was fun, and they're scrapping, and they're going back and forth, and Holland is hanging with him on the feet. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. But I am figuring at some point here we're going to work in some grappling and clinches and scrambles and whatever because he's fighting Stephen Thompson. Never am I thinking we're going to go 25 minutes here in a friggin' striking battle. And then come rounds 2 and 3, and in both rounds, there is some type of transition where they hit the ground, and Kevin Holland is on top and in control. And both times he's like, no, up, and gets off Stephen Thompson and lets him up. And I'm like, is this really what we're doing? Like, in the biggest opportunity of Kevin Holland's life where he can win and be ranked top 10 and be in huge fights and finally get to, like, where we all think his talent should be in terms of the level that he's at. And I get it. Like, I get it that the guy is an entertainer and he loves to be that guy and that he probably wants to see if he can beat Stephen Thompson on the feet. But you only get so many opportunities in this sport. And like I said, it's Stephen Thompson. Like, if there was ever a guy who you're like, okay, maybe I should at least try grappling at one point, the guy is Stephen Thompson. So, plus, then we learn later that the issues with his hand started in round 1. So it's like, all right, sure, you wanted to exchange with him, but then when you break your fucking hand in round 1, it's all right if you mix in some grappling. So, I don't know. I can't shake just how annoyed I am that Kevin Holland let this opportunity slip through his fingers because he wanted to be an entertainer. And again, I get it, and who am I? If that's what he wants to be, that's what he wants to be. I just see the talent in him. I feel like there's a level that he can reach that he is not reaching. So that's like my main takeaway thought that I can't get out of my brain for this fight. But, of course, I want to give props to Stephen Thompson as well. That dude went in there and scrapped. He ate shots, especially in round 1. He ate quite a few big shots, kept going. And, you know, he got himself a straight striking match. And to the surprise of absolutely nobody who pays attention, he shined. Like, I've seen a fair amount of, like, almost surprise takes coming out about this fight, which I don't get. Like, oh, man, like, wow, Stephen Thompson was back. Stephen Thompson looked incredible. Like, that's Stephen Thompson. That's what he does. That's what he's always done. If you fight his fight with him, you go 25 minutes on the feet with that guy. That's exactly what he's going to do every time. That's not, in no way am I surprised by that development. So, you know, he looked awesome, of course, and it's a big win career-wise for him in terms of where he was at. But it's also a massive missed opportunity career-wise for Kevin Holland.
Agreed. Omar, agreed, disagree? What was your take on the performances of both Holland and Wonderboy?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, the fight was great. I really enjoyed the fight. Being there live, the energy and all that electricity was palpable, to say the least. But you couldn't help feeling like, and so I should mention in the moment, I remember thinking that in round 3, after he caught a spinning heel kick to the hand, I thought that's when he broke his hand. And so from round 3 on, I thought that was when he was compromised. 1 and 2 had never even occurred to me that he had hurt his hand. So it was a little bit different, I guess, and through that lens at that moment, because to me, that is when he started to kind of wrestle, or at least attempt to start going for the wrestling, kind of at the beginning of round, or the end of round 3, beginning of round 4, that kind of deal. Found out later, you know, looking at highlights and stuff later on, he started talking to Wonderboy and saying, you know, I got to do what I got to do. But I can't help but also kind of be annoyed, because if you did break your hand in the first round, to me, that's like the prime reason to be like, okay, whatever gentleman's agreement we had to not take each other down kind of goes out the window when I'm fighting with one hand. True. So, because at that point, it's not really a proper striking match anymore, is it? The man's broken. So, to me, it changes the dynamic a little bit. He eventually took him down anyway, so the idea that you let him up earlier also is stupid.
He never took him down. What do you mean?
Or they got down to the ground at a couple points.
Oh, there were a couple points right up. He intentionally let him up.
But that's my point, is you were already compromised, and then eventually you tried to take him down later on in the fight anyway, couldn't do it in the first place, and so the moments where you did have him down on the ground almost now seem even more ridiculous that you let him up.
Yes.
So there is a lot of frustration in that specific thing. When it comes to Wonder Boy, everyone should fucking pray to have counters like that man. Pray to have timing like that man. The way he's able to read people come in, manage his distance, and blast that left hand the way that he does, or frankly the right hand, because he's so good at switching stances. But it's really a wonder to watch it and how many times he does it. And I don't even want to say there's no power behind it, because there's definite power behind those strikes. Kevin Holland ate a lot of shit, and he definitely got a chin for sure.
He's known for eating shots.
Those straight shots, those straight counter shots were nasty, man. They were very, very nasty. And of course, the kicks, again, one can only pray to have kicks like that and mix them into their combos like that. He gave Wonder Boy a platform to shine, and Wonder Boy did just that.
It was a striker's delight. I mean, this is why the UFC brought Stephen Thompson into the fold for fights like this, for moments like this. And, he's coming off back-to-back losses against, who was it? Bilal and Burns.
And Burns, yeah.
And, man, to your point, Mark, it's hard to be a Kevin Holland fan. It's like, I'm such a fan of his. But I thought of this analogy when you said that. Being a Kevin Holland fan is kind of like what it's been like to be a Knicks fan for the past, 10 years. It's like you love them. But then sometimes you're just like, as a franchise, you're like, what are they doing? Yeah. That's like I feel like a Kevin Holland. It's like I love him, but it's like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
He could be so much better. He could not be. He is as good as he is, but his choices,
his results could be so much better. Yeah.
His results.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all.
And you do have to give Kevin Holland credit, because he dropped Wonder Boy, or at least I can't remember if he actually dropped him or if he at least rocked him. But I mean, he tagged him. He definitely put the paws on him, and a lot of people don't touch Wonder Boy. Throughout 5 rounds, 3 rounds, people don't touch him a lot of the time. So, got to give him credit, man.
I thought... Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I think his hand broke probably when he hit Thompson on the forehead. That almost dropped him. That was square on the forehead punch.
Could be.
Yeah.
And I thought he could hang with Thompson on the feet.
Same.
Because of how kind of tricky he's not like this clean striker. He's awkward, he's long, he takes weird angles, but also because of how he can mix it up, and that Thompson would have to be thinking about that. As the fight went on and Thompson realized, okay, this dude is never trying to clinch me or grab me in any way, you kind of lose your ability to be a little awkward, and you lose an edge that you had. So he took it away from himself.
Absolutely.
We should also give credit, because no one ever does, to the corner of Kevin Holland for stopping that fight when they did. Because they could have definitely, 98% of the other coaches I think out there would have definitely been like, listen, man, you got to do something. You got 5 minutes. I know your hand's fucked up. You might never use it again, but you know what? This is your opportunity, man. Go out there. You might never carry your kid, but fuck that. Go out there, win that fight. And he would have went out there, and the end of the 4th round, where he was basically turtled up against the cage, taking wild shit from Stephen Thompson, would have just continued for another 5 minutes, and it might have been even significantly worse than where we ended in the 4th round. So kudos to his corner for doing the right thing at the right time.
Yeah, he was against the cage because he knew he could roll there, and he knew he was so defenseless that he was going to get caught if he didn't at least have that ability to roll. If he was out in the open, he was going to get caught.
Yeah, he couldn't even move his arm. His arm was down. It was like by his side. It was the right call to make to end that fight.
Let's talk about where these two gentlemen go from here. So we have the winner, Stephen Thompson, the 39-year-old South Carolinian. He gets back in the win column, like I said, after 2 straight losses against Burns and Bilal. He's now 17-6 as a pro. This was his 8th knockout/TKO. Mark, at welterweight, he's been around here for a minute. I mean, I think he's been in the UFC for close to a decade now. I think he came in when he was like 30, and now he's almost 40. And who else is there left for him to fight at welterweight? Still in the top 10.
2012 he came to the UFC. I had to look it up. So, yes, well done.
Wow.
So, he threw this out there. I don't know what the hell Jorge Masvidal is ever doing. He's a very hard guy to put a finger on of who he may fight and when he may fight. But obviously they have fought before. Stephen Thompson won a decision. He is saying he'd love to fight Jorge again. I know Jorge talks a lot about how he should be fighting Leon Edwards and whoever else, but if we're being honest, Jorge is not getting that fight right now. So I think this fight actually makes a lot of sense. It's a chance for Jorge to get a loss back. Maybe he'd be into that. At least he would reignite some momentum, and then maybe he is getting a bigger fight like he's talking about. So I think that makes sense. If that doesn't happen, the other name I heard Wonderboy throw out was Michel Pereira, which I'd be down for too, because that just seems like a wild fight.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be cool.
I'll take that all day. Absolutely.
You second that?
Also, I would second that. I will also point out that Leon Edwards versus Jorge Masvidal will totally happen if Usman pulls out like a week before. Jorge will be fucking in there like swimwear. They will sell the shit out of it. It'll be a spectacle. And that is how Jorge gets another title shot.
That's a great point. He's probably in shape, hoping for that opportunity.
Yep, he's waiting.
Yeah.
Let's move on quickly to Kevin Trailblazer Holland, 30-year-old from California. His second straight loss now, and his record drops to 23-9. Wow, still a great record for Holland. Give me a name, Omar, at welterweight. If he is going to keep fighting at welterweight, a lot of interesting matchups because he's brand new to the weight division. So who do you think would be interesting for him next?
I like him at welterweight, to be honest. I think what really set him back in this Stephen Thompson fight was not ability. It was not technique. It was fight IQ. It was the choices that he made in the cage that led him to where he went. But I do not think that skill for skill, he is not able to beat Wonderboy Thompson. Even now, I would probably still pick him to beat him in an MMA match. What he tried to fight him in is... What he did end up fighting him in was essentially a kickboxing fight. And I would never have picked Kevin Holland to win a kickboxing fight against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. So with that being said, I do want to see Kevin Holland still climbing the rankings. I wouldn't imagine he drops very low in the rankings. We'll go to the Prio rankings for that later on, I would assume. But I want to see him against Daniel Rodriguez. I think D-Rod is a good test for him. I think that skill for skill, they would be very fun, very entertaining. They're very complementary to one another. And I think D-Rod, coming off of a loss, also needs a nice name to win off of. And I think this is an opportunity for him to do that too.
I like it a lot. Mark, any other ideas?
So I'll tell you his ranking now because he's not someone who really moved off of this. He is my number 21 ranked welterweight. So he's kind of in that group of guys who are just outside of these rankings. I'm assuming he is in a similar spot in the UFC because he's not in the top 15, but I assume he's not far out of it. So he's 21 in mine, and another guy who is right in that area, or two guys, one of whom I was going to say is D-Rod. I think that's a great matchup. I think it makes a lot of sense. I actually think he is ranked in the UFCs. I think he's 15th in the UFCs.
15, I think so, yeah.
And another one is the Leech, Li Jingliang. I think, and who knows how long Holland is going to be out for with this hand injury, but I think him against another guy who's kind of right at the edge of these rankings is where Kevin Holland should be fighting right now.
Yeah, we should actually mention that Kevin Holland did break his third, fourth, and fifth metacarpals.
Oh, 3? Damn.
Yeah.
And there's physical bone displacement as well. So his hand is fucked. Yeah. He's definitely going to need surgery. They've already said he's going to need surgery for it. So he might be done for 2023, or at least the majority of it.
He'll probably retire at least once between now and whenever he fights again.
God, such a fucking brutal sport. And what a brutal fight that it really was.
Yeah.
And the irony, too, there's a little bit of irony that's like, because it's against the backdrop of like two of the nicest fucking guys to ever like step into the cage together. They like basically made out like when the bell rang, and like the whole time they're like talking nicely to each other the whole time.
I would love to hear Bisping's commentary, because I realized afterwards that I didn't hear any commentary, obviously, while I was there. So Bisping tends to hate that shit. He hates people like hugging and high-fiving during the fight, and they were doing that for 5 or 4 rounds. So I would imagine how much Bisping was losing his fucking mind on that broadcast.
I feel like he didn't say that much, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I will
he
say
hates it, man. I've heard him just go off about it in the past.
For my own part, as much as I hate unsportsmanlike shit, like when a guy goes for a fist bump as like a sportsmanship, but then like fakes it and like goes for a punch or like ducks under, I fucking hate. That's garbage to me.
Oh yeah.
On the other side of it,
go to jail.
yeah, for sure. On the other side of the spectrum here, I actually really don't like it when guys show
I don't either.
so much love in the fight. I'm like, stop. You gotta fight right now.
I think there are appropriate moments, but Kevin Holland and Stephen Thompson were doing it like every other exchange. That's it's a bit much. Beginning of the round, you want to give him a hug or something, like that's cool, but let's get to work. You know what I mean?
I don't like round 1 hug. I also don't like the start of round 5 hug. Get it out of here. I don't like it.
Oh.
Okay.
I saw Cheeto tweet something along the lines of like, enough of the fucking high-fiving, and I was like, thank you, Cheeto.
Yes. Like high five and hug after the fight. I love seeing that. When the sportsmanship comes out, when the fight's over, love it. But in the fight, I don't like it. Okay.
I don't mind it at the
on.
beginning of a round.
I don't mind it before strikes are exchanged. Like,
Right.
Tuivasa and Pavlovich did it. They walked out, they hugged each other, and they said, all right, time to fight. If it is before the fight begins,
Mentality.
totally fine. When that fight is happening, I want to see fucking Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald level stare downs between rounds.
Yeah.
I would actually be more annoyed if they started fucking hugging at the beginning of rounds 2, 3, and 4. Like either hug at the beginning, very beginning of the fight, and then if you want, hug at the very end of the fight, like before the last round begins, if you want. But like to just hug every fucking round, like I don't need this.
The start of the 5th, I can live with. It's like, all right, we've been through 20 minutes of war. I respect you. Quick hug.
Let's go.
I live with it. But the whole in between rounds shit, I can't.
Yeah. The in between rounds drives me crazy.
Okay. And in another very sportsman-filled contest, also in the welterweight division, in the co-main event of this fight night, Rafael dos Anjos said, y'all must have forgot, and he finished Bryan Barbarena by submission via neck crank at the 3-minute 20-second mark of round number 2. Omar, let me throw it over to you first this time. What was your take of RDA getting it done? And honestly, he kind of dominated Bryan Barbarena. What are your thoughts?
I feel like I'm not 100% surprised at all. I mean, when we talked about it last week, I think we talked about the technique of RDA, the championship caliber of RDA. And as much as we love Bryan Barbarena, I think we all would agree that Bryan Barbarena is a fun guy to watch. There is just levels to this game. And I think RDA is just on a level at this point where Bryan Barbarena is vastly far from. Obviously, in a fight, anything can happen, but all the signs pointed to RDA beating the shit out of Bryan Barbarena. And it was a great performance from RDA. I mean, he mixed it up fantastically. His control on the ground was A+. His aggression in general was the kind of shit you want to see from RDA. He does not always give you these types of performances, it must be noted. So it was great to see him at his peak. And do as well as he did against Barbarena. And lastly, things that don't happen very often are the most A+ fucking call-outs in the UFC. And RDA, of all people, is kind of horrible at call-outs. But goddamn, did my man have either a friend or a manager or somebody on his team that knew to tell him to do this, because the call-out of Conor McGregor in this day, in this era, was probably the most perfect call-out ever.
So? What was so great about it?
I think the timing is 100% perfect. RDA is now at 170. You've got the history of them having this having to have fought at 155 and not getting the chance to because RDA's foot was a balloon or whatever the hell happened to him. And then I think that was the Chad Mendes, right? That was when he first.
No, that was he was supposed to come up and try to become double champ against RDA, and then he fought Nate instead when RDA got hurt. And then his later double champ attempt was the Eddie one.
Eddie Alvarez one. Okay. So there's history there, right? And like I said, RDA at this point is a 170 pounder. I can't see that man dropping down to 155. Conor McGregor is like 195 pounds right now. So I can only imagine that at this point, when he does fight, when he's not pissing red hot, he will eventually go down to 170. And I just think that fight makes so much sense, especially for a guy like Conor McGregor, who's all about the numbers and this and that. I think it works, man.
I think so, huh?
I don't know if RDA drives numbers. I think it works storyline-wise. And we've said that on this show before. We've talked about that matchup a few times of how we think it's a matchup that makes sense. But I don't know if it does enough numbers for Conor to say. I mean, everything he does is going to do numbers. But, like, compared to him and Chandler, it's not – I don't think it's the same.
Sure.
But as for RDA, yeah, I am 0% surprised that went that way. I said – I thought the grappling would be all the difference. I said third round finish. It ended up being the second round. But, yeah, that was like clockwork. RDA came in. He did what he does. And when he comes in with a grappling game plan and he's fighting someone who can't stop it, it's just like, oh, my God. Like, I remember he did the same thing to Paul Felder. And it was like, It just feels so inevitable. Like, you watch it and you're like, this poor guy. Like, what? How can he stop this? Like, he's so... Like I said, it's like clockwork. It's just step by step, and you're in more trouble and more trouble, in a worse position, and there's no stopping him. If you don't have the if you're not someone who has the requisite grappling to counter that, and Barbarena is not. So, did I think it'd be slightly more competitive? Maybe I thought there'd be a couple interesting exchanges on the feet. But yeah, the RDA kind of walks through him there, and then I agree. I think it was a great job for him to shoot his shot. Obviously, it's a massive call-out. Again, I don't know if he gets it, but the storyline is there. And if they want something that comes with like a promo video of, bad blood needs to be settled, that type of thing to get Conor back in the fold, it checks the boxes. So and like Omar said, he is back at 170 now, so you never know. But I respect that he is out there shooting his shot, even though he had kind of said, like, oh, I'm here for the fun fights now. Maybe my title aspirations are done. And then he's like, nah, fuck that. I want to fight Conor McGregor.
Well, that's not title aspirations.
I mean... Shit, to your bank account it is.
I think if he beats Conor McGregor, he gets in a huge fight, don't you?
For sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's not Bryan Barbarena.
Who do you like in that fight? I'm just curious at this point. I'm not talking about back in what must it have been, 2015 or 16?
I'm going to be honest, man. At 170 pounds, I probably would still pick McGregor because RDA is not a 185er or a 170 pounder that like, he's a 155er that went up. It's very similar to McGregor. And McGregor's power, I think, against somebody who is around his height and his size, even at 170 pounds, I think he smashes him, to be honest. And I do think that Conor McGregor's ground game is heavily underrated. And I think it's because Khabib fucking ended up working him. And Chad Mendes took him down as many times as he did. But I would really challenge you guys to go watch both of those fights back and really watch the ground game and the approach from McGregor. And while he does get worked by Khabib had to work to get him there. There was a lot of very good exchanges between the two of them when it came to the grappling that if you watch Khabib against other guys, does not happen. So I do think that his grappling and his takedown defense specifically is kind of fucking legit and always has been. So I don't think RDA gets him down as easily as he did Bryan Barbarena. So I would give it to McGregor personally.
Yeah, I don't need to rewatch anything. I've always been on team underrated grappling for Conor, and especially through the years. I think the losses only made him improve it more. If you remember, I was saying, I mean, it was ages ago, so you probably don't. But back on our first episode of the show, I was making the point of how well I thought Conor did off his back against Poirier. Like he's a dangerous dude off his back. He can be tricky down there.
Wow. Was that our first show? Was it the Conor Poirier fight?
99% sure, unless I'm wrong, but I think so. I can tell you in a second.
We'll find
actually.
out.
But
we'll find out.
But yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one. Like him getting out wrestled by RDA wouldn't shock me by any means. But yeah, and obviously he's been out for a million years, which is really tough to read. But gun to my head, I'd pick Conor in that fight.
Wow.
Our first episode was Poirier McGregor 3.
I just pulled it up too. Yep.
That's the
injury one. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
fuck. That was our first episode. Wow. Okay. Let's quickly, because we're already going long, baby. Let's talk about where these guys go from here at welterweight. So Dos Anjos, a 38-year-old Brazilian, back in the win column after getting knocked out, remember, by Rafael back in July. RDA improves to 32-14 as a pro. His 11th submission victory. Mark, give me a name. What do you want to see next for RDA?
So if it's not Conor, give me Sean Brady. I would enjoy the fuck out of every aspect of that fight. I think that's a great matchup.
Yeah, it would be. Would be. Omar, same question.
Every time we think about like matching these guys up, I'm like, is this a favor RDA this matchup, or is this a favor the guy that I want to match up with RDA? Because when I look at these guys, the person I want now to fight RDA is Randy Brown. But I feel like Randy Brown might kill RDA. It's very possible. Dude, I don't know, man. There's something that's clicked, it looks like, for Randy Brown lately. And his length, his reach, and his power seem really daunting against somebody like RDA, personally. And I'm not saying RDA is not dangerous, obviously, but Randy Brown knows how to use his length.
He had a close fight with Trinaldo, and RDA is a better version of Trinaldo, pretty much. Not saying I wouldn't consider picking Randy Brown, but I don't see it as like he might kill RDA.
I think Trinaldo is more durable than RDA, personally. And I kind of feel the same way about Gleison Tebow. Like, Gleison Tebow I don't think is better than RDA, but I do think he's a fucking cinder block. You know what I mean?
I love that you thought of Trinaldo and then your brain just immediately went to Tebow because they're like the same shape.
They're the same thing.
Okay, let's talk about Barbarena. Give me a name, Omar, for Mr. Bryan Barbarena.
So Bryan Barbarena, I would imagine, too, hasn't really moved from the rankings, considering I don't think RDA was ranked in welterweight recently. So I would imagine he probably sticks around the same. So if we're still looking for a fight for him to shine in, I think him against Max Griffin would make a lot of sense.
Like it.
Rankings-wise, I would imagine they're probably around the same. And skill for skill, I think it would be a banger of a fight. Both of those dudes go in there to scrap.
Okay, Mark, give it to me.
I will go Nico Price. That feels like a fight that we should have seen at least 25 times by now.
Great fight. Wow, love that fight.
Yeah. Fucking poor Nico. We'll get there, but poor Nico.
All right, let's try to do these a little quicker because we got a lot to do.
Okay. In the flyweight division, Matheus Nicolau knocks out Matt Danger Schnell. Round 2, 144 with punches. Mark, go first.
Woo, baby. Nicolau put it on Matt Schnell bad. He is a fantastic counter fighter. He's so patient that sometimes he kind of appears boring in there, but he knows how to walk you into shots. He's not going to rush anything. In this fight, he had a Matt Schnell who's kind of an aggressive guy, and it all came together over and over again. Anytime Schnell entered range, he was he was in danger. He ate some big ones, went down a couple times, and we know how tough and resilient Matt Schnell is, and he got truly put out at the end of that. So to do that is a big statement for Nicolau as a contender going forward in the flyweight division.
Omar, your thoughts?
It was a little weird because I almost felt like there were moments where Schnell was gifting him a lot of these openings and a lot of these opportunities to get hit. After the first few counters, you would think that you would kind of adjust and not allow yourself to run into such heavy shots, because Nicolau has some wild heavy shots. But he never really did. I don't know if there was a weight cut thing or whatever, because if you don't know, Matt Schnell had to shave what hair he did have in order to officially make weight. So I don't know if this weight cut was just more difficult and hampered his performance. But regardless, Nicolau took full advantage of it, man, and he really put a beating on Matt Schnell. Dropped him a few times, I want to say. But nasty performance from Nicolau.
Yeah, man. You guys want to match him up, or you just want to, for the sake of time, want to move on?
I'll give you both in the 20 seconds. Okay. I really want to say the winner of Cara France and Alex Perez for Nicolau, especially if it's Cara France, because it feels like it's like a big fight, and I feel like that's what Nicolau deserves. But then I saw that fight is not until February, so if we're not going to wait, we could go with your boy Brandon Royval. And then for Schnell, I was going to say, how about Tim Elliott? Like, those two in a cage feels like another thing that kind of should have happened by now. That would be a scramble fest.
Love it.
Yeah. That'd be like one of those little cartoons with the dust cloud.
Yeah, literally.
Okay. Let's see. Who is next? Oh, we're going to have to take a moment for this one, boys. In the heavyweight division, Sergei Pavlovich takes out Tai Bam Bam Tuivasa by knockout. I thought it was a TKO, but I guess maybe he did kind of put him out. In the very first round, under a minute, official time, 54 seconds of round number 1. Omar, talk about it.
See, if you want to know who was really upset from this fight, it was my wife. My wife was not having it at this fight. And I looked over before this fight, and everybody around me, of course, like we just talked about, it's like, yeah, Ty's going to whoop this kid's ass. And I'm looking down. I'm looking at the guys in front. I'm looking at the guy to the side of me, looking at my wife. I'm like, you guys all know that Tai Tuivasa is about to fucking die right now, right? Like, you guys know this. Pavlovich is an absolute animal. And I didn't see it in 30 seconds or 45, whatever it ended up being, but I knew Pavlovich was going to wreck Tai. I just knew it. And it ruined the crowd. It ruined the momentum of the crowd. Everyone was kind of pissed off after that. It was a real downer in the stadium, but and poor Sergei, bro. He's trying to get the crowd hyped up. He's trying to call Orlando. He's got his translator there with him. I see him walking out of the octagon. He's got his hands up. He's looking for like a yeah, like no, and I mean fucking nobody from the crowd is giving him any love. There was like 3 people that were in the very front row taking some pictures of him because they were in the very front row. Nobody clapped for him. Nobody gave him a pound. Nobody did shit to this man. I felt so bad for him. Like, it was messed up.
Mark,
I mean,
thoughts?
I said it. This is why you don't put Tai Tuivasa coming off a loss in a fight with a guy like Sergei Pavlovich, because you run the risk of getting this. And now Tai's star feels dimmed. His buzz feels crushed. You've now seen him put out pretty badly 2 fights in a row. I just, he's been a star for them. And I say this a lot about the UFC. I don't think they do a good job handling the build of their stars. It just seems like that's the last guy they ever should have matched Tai against coming off of that Gane loss. And they pay for it. And as for Pavlovich, what the fuck do we do with this guy? Like, he is scary. You're not supposed to just walk through guys who are this good and this tough the way that Sergei Pavlovich is doing it. Like, the dude goes in there for like a hot fucking 30, 60 seconds, and he's like, all right, another one. What do I do next? Like, we need to get Overeem back over here before Pavlovich kills everybody. But yeah, I mean, it's unreal to see Ty put out that easily. And he took a lot more damage. Maybe he went down quicker because he rushed back, like we said. I've never seen him put down that easily, but I also don't know who we've seen that is what Sergei Pavlovich is. So maybe it's just him and the power that is in his hands. But, I mean, we are here now with Pavlovich. Like, he is ready for a title eliminator. I know the top heavyweight is an absolute clusterfuck, and we say it every time there's a big heavyweight fight, but, like, he is fighting one of these top boys in the next one.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the guy just has thunder in his fucking hands, man. He just has sticks of dynamite. He's a battering ram of a human being. And to do that to a guy who has a good chin in Tuivasa, man, it just shows you, man. It's just lights out. He's just too much power. It's just too much. And it does suck. But yeah, Pavlovich now, his star is building because he's getting more and more knockouts. He's knocking everybody the fuck out. But also, he's not going to be as big of a star as Tuivasa, man, because Tuivasa is charismatic and a fan favorite like that. Pavlovich, unfortunately, there's a big language barrier. So it's a barrier. It's in the way of his star growing more and more, at least in the U.S. and in English-speaking markets. But, I mean, I'm still going to watch, man. I'm still going to tune right into his fights, man. Because I'm
all the way tuned in.
Don't blink, heavyweight, MMA. It's crazy.
For sure.
Any other names you want to throw out for Tuivasa, or you want is the names nobody? Please go take a year off.
Well, for Sergei, I would say kind of what I just said. It's just so tough because we still have no idea what's happening at the top of this division between Ngannou being hurt and Bones being Bones and Stipe missing, and like Gane and Blades are both kind of there. Like, do we have to fight each other, or can we maybe get a fight with one of these top guys? So it's just like the whole thing is on pause. But if I were to pick one, just the contrast of Pavlovich fighting Cyril Gane is wildly intriguing to me. Yeah, so if I could choose it, I think that's what I would do.
Any other names, Omar?
Yeah, that's so interesting. My thought on that is actually the opposite. Curtis Blades to me would be
it's a different contrast.
Interesting. Yeah. But it's really interesting because it's like I'm actually very interested. I think he does well against a technical fighter. I think he could figure it out. I think there's a lot more opportunity there. But against a guy who could potentially blast double him to hell, can he get up? Can he work his way back up? Can he stop the takedown eventually? So we know that Curtis Blades can be put out, but will he get the same opportunity to be put out, with all the takedown and all the grappling that's going to go into that fight? So I think it's super interesting. He's fun, man. As uncharismatic as his character is, the actual, him being in the actual division makes everything just a little bit more fun right now.
He's Drago. Like, I know that's Volkov's nickname. Yep. Pavlovich is Drago.
100%.
And they say that he does have wrestling, but we have not seen it at all. So I'm on board that test is worth it. I went the other way just because I'm so curious if a fighter who is as responsible defensively as Gane is could avoid that big shot, and then does Pavlovich get tired or what happens? So, yeah, but either way, sign me up.
Much different striking match against Gane.
And for Ty, first of all, I would like to book Ty at like a fucking B&B for some rest.
Yes.
Like a couple massages, things like that. And when he is back, again, a lot of the top of heavyweight is a KO threat. And you certainly don't want him getting knocked out twice. I mean, it's a risk against any heavyweight. But I'm literally going to like Marcin Tybura, someone like that, who is a bit less of a knockout threat, and hope Ty gets a win.
That was literally who had in my head too.
Okay, let's move on.
Sorry,
here we go.
Sorry, Marcin. We said you had pillow hands. That's our bad. That's our bad.
Mark said a little less. Okay, in the middleweight division, Roman Dolidze defeats Jack Hermansson by TKO, 406 of round 2. Omar, what are your thoughts?
I stand behind my statement that I was glad I saw this fight instead of the Derek Brunson fight, because I'm pretty sure that Derek Brunson fight would not have been that exciting and would not have ended that way. Roman Dolidze, I believe at one point one of us sent a text message that said by magic, which is pretty goddamn accurate. Roman Dolidze is fun, man. I really enjoy this man. I have no idea where this kid came from. I know he's been in a few UFC fights at this point, and we gush over him, I think, every time. His aggression, his technique, his ability to kind of roll with the punches and even, roll on the floor and end up in these advantageous positions. Jack Hermansson is not an easy guy to put out. He's also not an easy guy to get in a really compromised position. And if you go back and you watch that sequence where he laces his leg through to get that calf slicer, man, you could spend hours breaking down that thing and teaching that to somebody, because that is some high level shit right there. And credit to Jack Hermansson, I guess, because his leg didn't snap in half, but that is a tough motherfucker to have not tapped to that calf slicer and just eat shots until the referee was like, okay, I think I'm going to do this for you. It was an amazing performance from Dolidze. I really love watching this man fight. I was glad to have watched him fight live because it was just as crazy, if not a little bit crazier, watching it live. But I really see a high ceiling for Dolidze, and I'm excited to see what's next.
Okay, Mark, give us your thoughts.
This was one of the craziest things that I have ever seen in MMA. And MMA is a sport full of crazy things. But this shit blew my mind. This man, Roman Dolidze, is a wild card. Like, he has shown multiple times now that he's one of the most opportunistic fighters that we've seen in a while. Like, what we saw him do in this fight was fucking magic. I've never seen a fighter even attempt the chain of events that this man pulled off. And not only does he attempt it, but he does it to utter perfection. So to anyone who did not see this and wants to know what we are talking about, Jack Hermansson takes Roman Dolidze down, and he's on top of him. He throws up an armbar that Jack kind of wriggles away from. He transitions it into a reverse triangle that Jack pulls out of. He immediately, as Jack pulls up and comes out and his leg raises, turns it into a leg lock as his legs slide down. Jack tries to escape that. He holds onto the ankle, folds his leg behind him. Hermansson tries to turn to face forward because now the leg is bent behind him. Dolidze immediately lunges to take his back because he knows if he can control the back that he has a calf slicer position. Gets it. He's still on bottom at this point. Uses the calf slicer and the back control to roll Hermansson over, and Hermansson is now face down, flattened out with Dolidze on his back, and with the use of only one leg to try to escape. So, in other words, he's dead, and the TKO comes soon after. So, if you did not see this fight, I tried to describe it to you as best I could, but it will pale in comparison to actually watching the thing. So go find this clip. But it's just one of the most absurd, successful chain of events I've ever seen in a fight, and I will never forget that finish.
Amen. Sticking right here, Mark, do you have a name that you want to see Dolidze go next at middleweight?
I think there's a lot of options. It depends how quick you want to push this guy. He obviously asked to welcome Chimaev to middleweight if Chimaev is truly moving up. I doubt. I think they would need a bigger name for Chimaev. But you could go with him and Andre Muniz, which would be wild on the mat. I think you could give him the winner of this Till and Duplessis fight that's coming up this weekend. I even think you could say we don't have an opponent still for Marvin Vettori, and let's do that. Like it all depends how much they want to push this guy, but there are options. Gun to my head, if I got to choose, I think I would go with Muniz just for the grappling exchanges.
Omar, any other bright ideas?
Considering this was supposed to be Derek Brunson versus Jack Hermansson, I think Roman Dolidze versus Derek Brunson should be the next fight.
It's fair, too.
I like it. All right, gentlemen, let us enter into, finally, our lightning round. Let us begin still in the middleweight division. Eric Andrews defeats
True lightning, Omar.
Okay, your responses must be the length of a tweet. Fair? Okay.
Fair.
You haven't seen my tweets, Mike.
Okay. In the middleweight division, Eric Anders defeats Kyle Dawkins by TKO, 245 of round 2. Omar, let's give it a shot.
You could definitely sign me up for that boy, Eric Anders, because that is the Eric Anders I have been waiting for God only knows how many years. Aggressive, moves forward, throwing shots. Let's fucking go, your boy. Let's do it. I loved
Mark, take it. Love that energy.
You could not have said that better. He has always felt like a guy who might be capable of fighting in that way. And instead, he always kind of does this point fight, not so aggressive style. So to see him do that, I agree. And I don't like him because I don't really like his game. And to see him do that, I was like, fuck, okay, Eric Anders, I see you right now. So yeah, that was good for him. I thought Dawkins looked awful, though. So I'm curious how much that played into it. I thought he looked truly awful. I don't know if his face did not heal from what Roman Dolidze did to it, because it seemed like every impact was just killing him. So I thought he looked pretty bad, but a nice win for Anders.
Absolutely. Okay. In the, at a catch weight of 173.5, Philip the Fresh Prince Rowe defeats Nico Price by TKO, 326 round 3. Mark, take it.
Yeah, this was a fun fight. I loved this fight. I liked seeing Nico not look as slow as he looked against Oliveira. So I don't know what was happening in that fight. I don't know if he was hurt, but he didn't look as slow. I mean, he's still not as fast as Phil Rowe, but I thought he looked more like Nico Price in that fight. So that was good to see. I thought maybe I was going to look smart as that third round was playing out. I thought Nico was going to steal that thing, but an awesome comeback within that third round by Phil Rowe, and obviously a huge finish for him and a nice name to jump him into the mix now.
Yeah, Omar.
Yeah, a real test of gas tanks there, and Philip Rowe was just able to edge it out just a little bit. The skill is nasty. The combinations against the cage to get Nico Price out of there are absolutely terrifying. It was a fun fight to watch in person. Every time strikes landed, the crowd went absolutely fucking wild. I loved every minute of this fight and would absolutely watch this again.
All right. Mark.
What already?
Oh, my bad. Okay. Women's strawweight in the feature bout of the prelims, Angela Hill defeats Emily Ducat by unanimous decision, 30-27s across the board. Omar, take it.
It has been, I feel like, a minute since Angela Hill has cleared 3 rounds with somebody. And I'm glad that she did. She looked fantastic, I thought. I thought she looked like the significantly better fighter. And it was nice to see her have a solid win. I wish more people were paying goddamn attention to the fight in the arena. But, that is what it is. People will wave when they wave.
Mark.
Yeah, this one I did nail. I thought that Hill was a notch better in every area this thing would play out, and that's really exactly what happened. I couldn't see a way for Ducot to take that fight over from Hill, and it played out that way. Hill controlled it the whole time, and I agree. It was nice to see her get a no question about it 30-27 card.
Okay. In the lightweight division, Clay the Carpenter Guida gets the win by a split decision over Scott Holtzman. Let's see, 29-28 on 2 scorecards. Holtzman gets his own 29-28. Mark, sticking with you, give us your take.
Clay Guida stays winning fights that you don't think he's going to win. So props to that guy. I didn't think Holtzman looked great here either. I don't think he really looked like the guy we had watching his last few fights. Long layoff. He had said he was going to retire. So, who knows where he was at. But I feel like that was a lesser version of Scott Holtzman.
Omar?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Right after that fight happened, I remember kind of praising Clay Guida for having the fight that he had, but I also expressed that Holtzman is way better than that. Whatever happened, whatever that was, it sucks that that's his last fight to go out like that, I guess. In my head, if I was going to retire from a career like that, I'd at least like to go out on a performance, win or lose, that I know I, kind of gave everything for. And it just looked like he wasn't 100% there. He might have already had one foot out the door as it was, and maybe that's why his performance didn't really match up to what our expectations were. But Clay Guida, man, Clay Guida is serious savage to be doing what he's doing at this age and as long as he has been.
Mark.
He win.
Oh,
I wonder.
Keep doing that.
Are you drunk?
All right, in the lightweight division, Michael the Menace Johnson gets it done over Mark Jacasey by UD. Omar, go first.
Okay, so real quick point. Mark Jacasey did not go for as many takedowns, if any takedowns, and it stunned the whole fuck out of me. I'm over here waiting on pins and needles. When is he going to throw? When is he going to go for a takedown? Never happened. Michael Johnson kind of sunned him, I thought, for a good majority of that fight. I was very impressed with Michael Johnson being able to keep up a consistent pace for 3 rounds, being able to keep up with the aggression for 3 rounds. There's always a point in a Johnson fight where you never know if he's going to shit the bed, and he did not. And I was really happy to see that. So good on Michael Johnson.
Nice, Mark.
I'm checking something real quick because I have to counter Omar here.
Were there takedowns?
6 takedown attempts from Jacasey. I knew there was because I remember Mike Johnson stuffing some things. But the point remains that he did not look to make it a wrestle fest the way I expected him to. It was more once exchanges were happening that he was like, maybe I should try for a takedown here. But honestly, I think the reason you don't remember him is because MJ was stuffing them so quick. Like immediately hips back, and Jacasey was just like, fuck, nope, didn't get inside on that one, and he was backing away. Like it was very quick stuffs. But yeah, Michael fucking Johnson, let's go. So happy to see him get a W.
A to the men. Okay, featherweight division. Jonathan Pierce, JSP, defeats Darren the Damage Elkins by unanimous decision. Really a beating, 30-27, 30-27, and a 30-26 for JSP. Mark, sticking with you. Give us your take.
Yeah, so I said I thought the way to do it was to try to kind of fight a clean fight and lean on the distance, striking a bit, and not let it get ugly. And it didn't go that route, but it didn't matter. Pierce was just a clearly better fighter. He puts it on Elkins and still gets it done.
Omar.
It's not very often that you see a fighter be able to kind of out-wrestle or even kind of out-grit Darren Elkins, but Jonathan Pierce seemed to be a step ahead. He was faster, I thought, between the two of them. And he really kind of beat Darren Elkins, I thought, at his game. He put a real beating on Darren Elkins. Man was soaked in his own blood by the end of the fight. I thought it was a great performance from Pierce, and I thought it was a real showing of how good he is and how done Elkins might be. I don't really need to see this man continuously take damage like this. I just don't.
Damage?
Where are we?
Natan Levy.
Natan.
Okay, lightweight. Natan Levy defeated Gennaro Valdez by UD 29-28, 29-28, 30-27. Mark, go first once again.
Yeah, good one for Levy, I thought. Or is it Levy? No, I'm forgetting.
I think it's Levy.
Levy. But, yeah, I thought that Valdez might be able to find that chin, but he could not. Still not convinced that Natan Levy is anything too significant, but obviously moves to 2-1, so nicely done.
Yeah. Omar?
I would agree. Out of all the fights on this card, I think this one was kind of the slowest and the least, I guess, impactful as far as the crowd entertainment was concerned. It was a solid decision. You definitely couldn't take anything away from Levy, but there wasn't too much to really get hyped up about in this fight.
Okay, featherweight. Francis Marshall defeats Marcelo Rojo by knockout, 114 of round 2. Omar, give us your take.
This was a crazy little fight. I thought these two guys against each other, I thought were very even in a lot of moments, but I think where the exchanges got a little one-sided were in the actual clash. So there were moments where Marshall and Rojo would clash with one another at the same time, and Marshall was able to win those exchanges both times, dropping Rojo both times between those exchanges. The second time he got that drop, that was really the beginning of the end there, and they ended up calling the fight. But it was a very close fight up until those specific exchanges. So I'm interested to see where both of these guys go, to be honest, because both of them I thought were very, very good. Marshall just came out on top this time around.
I think Rojo might be going home because he is 0-3 in the UFC now at this point. He needed that one. Which is interesting because I agree that he is a skilled fighter. He's had some tough matchups. He had Charles Jourdain, then he had Kyler Phillips, and now this one didn't go his way.
Oh,
But,
Jesus Christ.
That is how you make a debut for Francis Marshall. Big statement out of him, so we will see what he does next. I'm trying to keep it short here.
Yeah, man. Okay, last one. Women's strawweight. Omar's girl, Yasmin.
He ain't keeping it short on this one.
Be short. This ain't gonna be short.
Yasmin Yaragui. TKOs Estela Nunez, 406 of round number 2. Mark, you go first. I'll let Omar bring us home.
Oh man, I sat back to give Omar the stage. Yeah, tough first round. I wonder how nervous Omar was. I thought Nunez won that first round, but big sequence from Haragui. Did not take the foot off the gas in round 2 and was able to get Nunez out of there to remain undefeated. So let's hear what Omar thinks about his girl.
Okay, Omar, take it.
Yeah, that first round had me fucked up, man. I was definitely nervous in that first round. I think it was a very, very competitive fight. Nunez brought a lot more to the table than I think I gave her credit for, to be honest. And once we actually got that fight going, the hands themselves I thought were very comparable to one another. The one thing that I think Haragui brings to the table that's unique in that weight division, and I think in a lot of women's fights in general, is that aggression. That Mexican aggression that you see in a lot of those Mexican fighters, man, she has it. And the way she can come forward, string combos together, she's not one to really pot shot, right? There's not a lot of single strikes in her game. A lot of her stuff is 2, 3, and 4 combinations. She loves the cross across. She loves moving forward during that stuff. It caught Nunez off guard a couple times, stumbled her a couple times just from her being off balance, not necessarily getting hit very clean. But when Haragui went down, man, I thought for me personally, and I've said it before, I'll keep saying it, those moments for me, I think, are a lot more telling than a fight that just somebody runs over somebody, because you really get to see where the mettle is of that person. You get to see if they're the type of person who just sort of accepts it, stays down. Haragui went down, came right back up, took some more shots, had her guard very tight. I love her stance. Her chin is in. Her arms are clenched. She has a very, very strong guard. And by the time we got out of that first round and went into the second, you could see things change a little bit. And then she's able to put the pace on Nunez and is able to get her out of there. I think there's work to be done with Haragui. I definitely think there's some leveling up for her to do, because I think at this point there are obvious signs that if she fights somebody in the top 10, she's vulnerable to getting hurt. But I do think with a little bit of time, exposure, constant growth with right matchups, Haragui is going to be a top 5 fighter.
Amen.
Wow.
Well done, Omar. Thank you.
Thank
John.
you.